Comment where you're watching from today, as we share a story about how a simple visit became something extraordinary that would touch hearts across the nation. The pediatric ward of Cedars-Sinai Hospital was unusually quiet that December morning. Linda Wilson, the head nurse who had worked there for 15 years, was updating her charts when she noticed something different about one of her youngest patients. 10-year-old Michael Miller, who hadn't smiled in weeks, was clutching his beloved basketball even in his sleep. Thomas Clark, the night shift nurse, had noted in his report that Michael had finally managed to get some rest after another difficult round of treatments. The boy had been admitted 3 months ago, his usually energetic spirit dimmed by the aggressive therapy needed to fight his condition. Sarah Davis, the child life specialist, paused by Michael's room, remembering how just yesterday he had managed to muster enough energy to watch part of a Lakers game on the small TV mounted on his wall. Even through his exhaustion, his eyes had lit up whenever Kobe Bryant appeared on screen. Elizabeth Garcia, Michael's primary doctor, had been concerned about his declining spirits. Sometimes, she had told the staff, the emotional battle is just as crucial as the medical one. She had noticed how Michael always wore his purple and gold Lakers jersey during treatments, like armor against the fear. Richard Sanchez, the hospital's security guard, was the first to notice something unusual that morning. A tall figure in a hoodie had entered through the side entrance, speaking quietly with David Smith, the hospital administrator. There was something familiar about the visitor's presence, a quiet confidence that commanded attention without seeking it. Mary Robinson, the ward receptionist, looked up as the visitor approached her desk, then quickly contained her surprise. This wasn't the first time a celebrity had visited the children's ward, but there was something different about this visit. No cameras, no entourage, no publicity team. Patricia Perez, another nurse, was checking Michael's vital signs when she heard a gentle knock on the door. The boy was still sleeping, his Lakers basketball clutched tightly against his chest, a gift from his father who worked double shifts to help cover the mounting medical bills. Kobe Bryant entered the room silently, removing his hoodie to reveal a warm smile. He carried a large duffel bag, its contents unknown. Linda Wilson watched from the doorway as the basketball legend took in the scene, the medical equipment, the Lakers posters on the wall, and the brave young fan who had been fighting his own championship battle. Betty Anderson, the ward's social worker, had seen many celebrity visits over the years, but something about this one felt different. There was no script, no cameras, just a genuine connection about to unfold. Mark Sanchez, Michael's physical therapist, had often used basketball analogies to encourage the boy during their sessions. "You're as tough as Kobe," he would say when Michael struggled through exercises. Black Mamba mentality, never give up. The morning sun was just beginning to stream through the hospital windows as Michael stirred awake. His eyes opened slowly, then widened in disbelief. For a moment he thought he was still dreaming. Kobe Bryant, his hero, was sitting quietly beside his bed, smiling warmly. Sarah Wilson, another child life specialist, would later describe how the whole ward seemed to hold its breath in that moment. The intersection of a child's dream and reality, captured in a single instant of pure wonder. "I heard you're a true Lakers fan," Kobe said softly, his voice carrying that familiar quiet intensity, "and that you've been showing some real Mamba mentality of your own lately." Michael's response was barely a whisper, weakened by his recent treatments but filled with awe. Karen Miller, his mother who had been sleeping in the bedside chair, woke to find her son's basketball idol engaging him in conversation about his favorite plays and players. Charles Rodriguez, one of the orderlies, paused in his morning rounds, touched by how Kobe spoke to Michael not as a celebrity to a fan, but as one basketball lover to another. The superstar asked Michael about his own game, his favorite positions, his dreams of playing. Joseph Robinson, the ward janitor who always made sure Michael's room had a clear view of the TV during Lakers games, watched as the boy's entire demeanor transformed. The spark that had been dimming in recent weeks flickered back to life. "I brought something for you," Kobe said, reaching for the duffel bag. "But it's not just a gift, it's a challenge." His words carried the same intensity he brought to the court, but tempered with gentleness for his young fan. Daniel Taylor, another young patient who had been walking the halls with his 4-stand, stopped in his tracks when he saw who was in Michael's room. Soon, other children began to appear in doorways, drawn by the presence of their hero. The duffel bag sat unopened as Kobe first took time to visit with each child who gathered, giving them his full attention, learning their names, their stories, their battles. Mark White, one of the pediatric residents, observed how the basketball star seemed to instinctively know what each child needed: encouragement, humor, or simply quiet understanding. Matthew Robinson, Michael's regular day nurse, noticed how the boy sat up straighter in his bed, his energy visibly returning as Kobe shared stories about his own challenges, his own moments of doubt, and how he pushed through them. The morning light filled the room as Kobe finally reached for the duffel bag, but this story isn't just about what was inside. It's about how a quiet visit, meant to lift one child's spirits, would ripple out to touch countless lives and remind everyone about the true meaning of greatness. Let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment when someone's kindness gave you strength just when you needed it most. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear hoodies and carry duffel bags full of hope. The hospital room had transformed into something magical. Mary Lewis, a veteran nurse who thought she'd seen everything in her 20 years at Cedars-Sinai, found herself pausing in the doorway, touched by the scene unfolding before her. Kobe Bryant sat on the edge of Michael's bed, the mysterious duffel bag still unopened beside him. Sandra Thomas, monitoring the boy's vital signs, noticed something remarkable: Michael's readings were stronger than they'd been in weeks, as if his hero's presence was literally strengthening him. "Before we get to what's in the bag," Kobe said, his voice carrying that quiet intensity that had made him legendary, "I want to tell you about my own hospital stay when I was young." Patricia Harris, another nurse passing by, stopped to listen as Kobe shared a story few had ever heard. The basketball star described his own childhood illness, a time when he too had felt scared and uncertain. John Martinez, the pediatric ward's supervising doctor, recognized the therapeutic value of this sharing, showing Michael he wasn't alone in his struggles. Robert Harris, who coordinated the hospital's youth programs, watched as other young patients gathered in the doorway. Among them was Lisa Garcia, a 12-year-old girl who hadn't left her room voluntarily in days, now drawn by the warmth and authenticity of the moment. "The hardest part of being in the hospital," Kobe continued, making eye contact with each child, "isn't the treatments. It's feeling like you're missing out on life, like the world is moving on without you." Nancy Thomas, the child psychologist, nodded silently. He had just articulated what many of her young patients struggled to express. Margaret Garcia, Michael's favorite weekend nurse, noticed how the boy's grip on his basketball had relaxed. He was no longer clutching it like a lifeline, but holding it like a symbol of hope. Mark Smith, the physical therapy assistant, remembered how Michael had resisted recent sessions, his spirit dampened by fatigue and fear. But now, as Kobe talked about rehabilitation and recovery, the boy's eyes showed new determination. "In basketball," Kobe said, reaching for the duffel bag, "we have a saying, control what you can control. Some days you can't control how your body feels, but you can control your mindset." Susan Miller, another young patient receiving treatment, wheeled herself closer to hear better. Betty Hernandez, who ran art therapy sessions for the children, recognized the power of this moment. It wasn't just about a celebrity visit or even about the gift itself. It was about showing these children that their heroes understood their struggles. As Kobe began to unzip the bag, John Lewis, the ward's chaplain, observed how even the parents gathered in the hallway seemed to draw strength from the basketball star's presence and words. "I brought something special," Kobe said, "but it comes with a challenge." He pulled out a brand new basketball, but not just any ball. Daniel Clark, who handled the hospital's special events, recognized it as a professional-grade NBA ball, the same kind used in actual games. The ball gleamed under the hospital lights as Kobe continued. "This is the exact same type of ball we use in the NBA. But here's what makes it special: it's going to help you with your therapy." Anthony Jones, Michael's physical therapist, leaned forward with interest. Kobe explained his idea: a series of specialized basketball-themed exercises designed to make therapy feel more like training. Barbara Miller, the occupational therapist, immediately saw the potential in combining physical therapy with something the children loved. Sarah Garcia watched as Kobe demonstrated the first exercise, showing how Michael could work on his grip strength by practicing ball handling drills. The movements were therapeutic but felt like basketball training rather than medical exercises. The ball, however, wasn't the only thing in the bag. Joseph Brown, one of the orderlies, helped Kobe distribute Lakers practice jerseys to each child present. But these weren't ordinary jerseys, each one had been customized with the child's name and their own special number. Karen Rodriguez, a social worker, observed how this simple gesture made each child feel seen and valued. They weren't just patients anymore, they were part of a team, part of something bigger than their individual struggles. Christopher Jackson, another young patient who had been particularly withdrawn lately, actually smiled as Kobe helped him put on his jersey. "Now you're officially part of the Lakers training squad," Kobe told him, his words carrying the weight of inclusion and hope. Nancy Brown, the music therapist, noticed how the atmosphere in the ward had shifted. The usual morning heaviness had been replaced by an energy that reminded her of a locker room before a big game. The bag had one more surprise. Christopher Gonzalez, the ward's technology coordinator, helped Kobe set up a tablet that contained personalized video messages from other Lakers players, each one encouraging the children in their battle. Joseph Smith, Michael's father who had just arrived for his morning visit before work, stood in the doorway with tears in his eyes. His son, who had been so depleted by recent treatments, was now sitting up in bed, eagerly learning dribbling exercises he could practice from his hospital bed. Karen Lee watched her daughter Lisa, another patient, finally venture out of her shell as Kobe showed her how to spin the ball on one finger. "It's not about getting it right," he told her, "it's about trying again every time you drop it." David Lopez, the hospital's head of pediatrics, saw something remarkable happening. The children weren't just receiving gifts, they were being given tools to transform their recovery into something meaningful, something they could actively participate in. Matthew Wilson, a respiratory therapist, realized how brilliant this approach was. The breathing exercises that many children resisted could now be framed as basketball conditioning, making them more likely to participate enthusiastically. Thomas Lee demonstrated how the children could use the ball for various stretching exercises, turning necessary medical movements into basketball drills. The children's eyes lit up as they realized they could train like Kobe, even from their hospital beds. Sandra Martinez, who coordinated with various sports organizations for hospital visits, had never seen such a thoughtfully planned interaction. This wasn't just about bringing joy to one moment, it was about changing the entire approach to recovery. William Moore, the hospital's recreational therapist, was already thinking about how to incorporate these new tools into his programs. The basketball and exercises weren't just gifts, they were resources for ongoing therapy and motivation. Michael Thompson, another young patient who had been struggling with his physical therapy, asked Kobe if he really believed they could all become strong again. The basketball star's response would be remembered by everyone present. "Being strong isn't about how many shots you can make or how fast you can run," Kobe said, his voice carrying throughout the now silent ward. "It's about getting up every time life knocks you down. And from what I've seen today, you're all stronger than any player I've ever met on the court." Elizabeth White, monitoring the emotional impact of the visit, saw how these words affected not just the children, but their parents and the staff as well. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't the physical item, but the belief that someone plants in your heart. Let us know in the comments if you've ever received a gift that was more than just an object, a gift that gave you strength or hope when you needed it most. Sometimes the most powerful presents are the ones that help us find our own strength. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the hospital windows as Kobe Bryant's visit continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Linda Wilson, observing from the nurse's station, noticed how the entire pediatric ward had come alive with a new energy. The usual afternoon lull had been replaced by something that felt almost like a basketball training camp. Thomas Clark, checking vital signs on his rounds, reported an unprecedented improvement in several patients' readings. Michael Miller, who had been struggling with his breathing exercises, was now practicing them with determination, imagining each breath as preparation for a championship game. Sarah Davis watched as Kobe moved from room to room, spending time with children who couldn't leave their beds. He adapted his basketball exercises for each patient's condition, working closely with Elizabeth Garcia to ensure every movement served both therapeutic and motivational purposes. Patricia Perez had never seen anything like it in her 20 years of nursing. Even the children who weren't basketball fans were drawn into the atmosphere of possibility that Kobe created. Mary Robinson noticed how he had a special way of connecting with each child, finding their unique source of motivation. In Michael's room, Richard Sanchez observed as Kobe demonstrated a modified dribbling exercise that could be done from the bed. Every great player starts with the basics, he explained, showing how even small movements could build strength. It's not about how fast you go, it's about doing it right every single time. David Smith, coordinating with the physical therapy department, was already documenting these exercises. Betty Anderson, the occupational therapist, saw immense potential in this approach, using sports psychology to transform tedious therapy sessions into meaningful training. Sandra Williams, who ran group therapy sessions, watched as something remarkable happened. The children began encouraging each other, sharing tips on the exercises, forming an impromptu support team. Mark White noticed how even the most isolated patients were now part of this unified effort. John Martinez brought in additional medical staff to observe, recognizing that they were witnessing more than just a celebrity visit. This was a revolution in pediatric patient care. The basketball-themed exercises were doing more than just strengthening bodies, they were rebuilding spirits. Lisa Garcia, one of the youngest patients, showed Kobe how she'd modified his ball-handling drill to work with her forelines. His face lit up with genuine admiration. "That's exactly what champions do," he told her. "They adapt and find a way." Nancy Thomas documented how the children's emotional states had shifted dramatically. Those who had been withdrawn were now engaged. Those who had resisted therapy were eager to participate. Robert Harris saw how the parents' faces showed new hope as they watched their children embrace these challenges. Margaret Moore brought in art supplies, and soon the ward was filled with children drawing themselves in their Lakers jerseys, imagining future victories. John Lewis noticed how these drawings showed the children not as patients, but as athletes in training. Matthew Garcia helped set up a small hoop in the physical therapy room, modified so children of all mobility levels could participate. Karen Miller watched her son Michael demonstrate a seated shooting technique to another patient, his own pain momentarily forgotten in his excitement to help others. Charles Rodriguez coordinated with hospital maintenance to install brackets for resistance bands, transforming hospital corridors into training stations. Joseph Robinson saw how this changed the entire atmosphere. Walking to treatments became road game training, 4 poles became conditioning equipment. Daniel Taylor worked with a nutritionist to rename menu items with basketball themes, making healthy eating part of the championship training program. Sarah Wilson noticed how children who had been refusing meals were now asking for MVP power foods. The transformation wasn't limited to the children. Barbara Garcia saw how parents began incorporating basketball terminology into their encouragement. "That's my all-star," they'd say during difficult procedures. "Show me that Mamba mentality." Anthony Jones collaborated with Kobe to create a progress chart that looked like NBA statistics, tracking therapy achievements like game victories. Patricia Thomas saw how this shifted the children's perspective. They weren't just enduring treatment, they were training for their comeback. Linda Hernandez, who handled patient recreation, watched as children who normally stayed in their rooms began venturing out for team practice. Susan Brown noticed how they started encouraging each other using phrases they'd learned from Kobe. The hospital staff began adapting their approaches too. William White started calling his therapy sessions training camps. Mary Thompson incorporated basketball-style pep talks into her nursing rounds. Christopher Anderson saw how this shared language built bridges between staff and patients. As the afternoon progressed, Kobe shared more personal stories about his own injuries and recoveries. Lisa White observed how these stories helped the children see their challenges differently, not as setbacks, but as preparation for future triumphs. David Perez, the hospital's photography coordinator, captured moments that would later become part of a special project. Images of children in their personalized jerseys, practicing their exercises, their faces showing determination rather than resignation. Mark Martinez helped organize a mini-tournament where children competed in adapted versions of basketball skills, each challenge designed to aid their recovery. Sandra Lee noticed how even kids who couldn't participate physically became involved as coaches and strategists. Nancy Ramirez coordinated with the Child Life Department to incorporate basketball themes into educational activities. Margaret Smith saw how math problems involving basketball statistics suddenly became engaging rather than tedious. As evening approached, Michael Lewis from the hospital's communication department interviewed several children about the day's events. Their responses revealed how profoundly their perspectives had shifted. They spoke not of illness and treatment, but of training and future goals. Jennifer Clark worked with the night shift staff to ensure the new energy could be maintained even after Kobe left. The evening routine was renamed Championship Rest Period, with relaxation exercises reframed as pre-game preparation. Barbara Jackson helped create a wall of fame where children could post their therapy achievements. Richard Miller saw how this public recognition of their efforts motivated them to push harder in their recovery. The parents noticed changes too. David Williams watched his daughter, previously withdrawn, enthusiastically demonstrate her modified basketball exercises to a new patient. Thomas Garcia saw his son's determination return as he worked through his therapy drills. Karen Thompson coordinated with other departments to extend the program's impact. The laboratory became stats analysis, imaging procedures became game film review, and medication times became power-up periods. As the day drew to a close, Kobe gathered the children for one final pep talk. Lisa Miller recorded his words, knowing they would become a source of inspiration for future patients. Champions aren't made when everything is easy. They're made when facing the toughest challenges. Each of you is training for something bigger than basketball, you're training for life. Let us know in the comments if you've ever seen how a change in perspective can transform a challenging situation into an opportunity for growth. Sometimes the greatest victories come from learning to see our struggles as preparation for something greater. 6 months after Kobe Bryant's transformative visit to Cedars-Sinai's pediatric ward, Linda Wilson stood in what had become known as the Championship Training Center, formerly the physical therapy room. The walls were now adorned with inspirational quotes, progress charts disguised as NBA statistics, and photographs from that remarkable day. Thomas Clark, reviewing patient records, had documented something extraordinary. Recovery rates had improved significantly since implementing what the staff now called the Mamba Mentality Program. Michael Miller, whose condition had seemed so dire 6 months ago, was preparing for his final treatment. Sarah Davis, coordinating with Child Life Services, had helped expand the program to other hospitals. Elizabeth Garcia reported that medical centers across the country were adopting their basketball-themed approach to pediatric care, transforming how children viewed their recovery journey. Richard Sanchez noticed it first, a familiar tall figure in a hoodie, entering through the side door just as he had that first day. But this time, Kobe Bryant wasn't alone. With him was David Smith, now a consultant helping implement similar programs in other hospitals, and a film crew documenting the success of their innovative approach. Mary Robinson watched as Michael, now strong enough to walk unassisted, demonstrated the modified basketball drills to new patients. The boy who had once clutched his basketball like a lifeline was now teaching others how to find their own strength through the game. Patricia Perez had maintained detailed records of the program's impact. The statistics were impressive: increased participation in therapy sessions, improved emotional well-being scores, and most importantly, better recovery outcomes. Betty Anderson's psychological assessments showed dramatically reduced anxiety levels among participating patients. Mark Sanchez coordinated with the Lakers organization to establish regular player visits, but it was the children themselves who had become the real stars. Sarah Wilson documented how former patients would return to mentor new arrivals, sharing their own stories of transformation. John Martinez presented his findings at a medical conference, showing how incorporating sports psychology and modified athletic training into pediatric care could revolutionize recovery approaches. The Cedars-Sinai method was becoming standard practice in children's hospitals nationwide. Karen Miller watched her son Michael welcome a new patient, a young girl named Lisa Garcia, recently diagnosed and frightened of what lay ahead. But within minutes, Michael had her laughing as he taught her the special ball-handling exercises that had helped him through his darkest days. Charles Rodriguez had helped create a special display case near the ward entrance. Inside was the original basketball Kobe had brought, now covered in signatures not from NBA players, but from every child who had completed their training and gone home healthy. Joseph Robinson maintained the growing wall of victory photos, children ringing the championship bell on their last day of treatment, proudly wearing their personalized Lakers jerseys. Daniel Taylor had started a tradition of having each graduating patient sign their jersey and donate it to inspire newcomers. The day's highlight was watching Kobe interact with both current and former patients. Mark White observed how the basketball legend remembered every child's name, their specific challenges, and the unique ways they had adapted their training to overcome them. Matthew Robinson coordinated a special demonstration where former patients showed new arrivals how they had modified various exercises. Sandra Thomas noted how this peer-to-peer support system had become one of the program's most valuable aspects. Linda Hernandez supervised as children in various stages of treatment participated in adapted basketball drills. What had started as simple exercises had evolved into a comprehensive physical and emotional support system. Joseph Brown saw daily how the children's competitive spirit helped them push through difficult treatments. Karen Rodriguez documented the program's expansion into different areas of pediatric care. The oncology ward had its three-point shooters division, while the respiratory unit became known as the full court press team. Christopher Jackson helped create special challenges for each department's specific needs. Nancy Brown incorporated music therapy, creating special workout playlists that matched the rhythm of various exercises. The children called it their championship soundtrack, and it became another tool in their recovery arsenal. Christopher Gonzalez maintained the digital platform where current patients could connect with program graduates. Joseph Smith watched his son Michael mentor younger patients through video calls, sharing encouragement and tips just as Kobe had done for him. Karen Lee coordinated family support groups where parents shared their experiences of the program's impact. David Lopez saw how this community aspect strengthened not just the children, but entire families facing similar challenges. Matthew Wilson worked with the physical therapy department to continually refine and improve the exercise programs. Thomas Lee helped create new challenges that maintain the basketball theme while meeting specific therapeutic needs. Sandra Martinez organized regular celebrations for treatment milestones. These championship ceremonies became powerful motivators, giving children concrete goals to work toward. William Moore saw how these events strengthened the sense of community among patients and staff. Michael Thompson, who had documented the program's development, presented a special video showing the transformation from that first visit to the present day. Elizabeth White watched as current and former patients saw themselves not as they had been scared and uncertain, but as they had become champions in their own right. Barbara Miller helped coordinate surprise video messages from Lakers players, but the most powerful testimonials came from the program graduates themselves. Jennifer Clark saw how these success stories inspired new patients to embrace their own recovery journey. The day's most touching moment came when Michael Miller presented Kobe with a special gift, a scrapbook filled with letters and photos from every child who had completed the program. Richard Miller captured the emotion on the basketball legend's face as he read the children's stories. David Williams worked with hospital administration to secure funding for program expansion. Thomas Garcia saw how the initial investment in basketball equipment had led to reduced recovery times and improved patient outcomes, making the program not just emotionally valuable but cost-effective. Karen Thompson helped organize regular training camps, where former patients returned to encourage current ones. The children called these events championship reunions, and they became powerful reminders that recovery was possible. As the day drew to a close, Kobe gathered everyone for a final message. Lisa Miller recorded his words for future patients. True champions aren't defined by their victories but by how they face their challenges. Each of you has shown more courage, determination, and heart than any athlete I've ever known. Looking around the transformed ward, Linda Hernandez saw the lasting impact of that first visit. What had started as a simple gift had become a movement, changing not just how children faced illness, but how medical professionals approached pediatric care. Let us know in the comments if you've ever seen how one act of kindness can grow into something bigger than anyone imagined. Sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones that keep giving, passed from one heart to another, growing stronger with each sharing.